another thing, Vic, we found is that every time they establish a new covenant, when it is in honour and adding to the original Talmud covenant, they burn and murder by fire a lot of people.
What's the purpose of that? It's part of the curse.
To worship Moloch, from where we get the word immolate.
Right.
On the Holocaust, the burnt offering of animals. So you discover all these periods in history where these events occur, and around that event, and because of that event, there is some major act that takes place.
Yes.
So, for example, when the Siesta KV Act was introduced, which introduced the legal concept of how the trust was to work,
yes.
And we call it the E-state, the concept of E-state.
Yep.
The concept of E-state is that the man or woman is effectively dead, legally. You can't have a living thing in a trust. It has to be dead. It's probate, right?
Yeah, the corpus, yep.
Yep.
So what the registrar at Vital Statistics does is, as soon as he does the birth certificate, he declares the baby dead.
Unless that's why it's a notice of protest in blue. That's why birth certificates are in blue, because it's saying, and it's also why the birth certificate is usually not issued immediately with the live birth record. It's issued sometime after, because what they're doing is saying, we haven't heard from the baby, so we're writing a notice of protest and dishonour. And after 7 years, the registrar can then say, well, I didn't hear from the baby. After 7 years, the baby must be dead. That means any Siesta KV trust is lawful, and the lien is placed on the Siesta KV trust is lawful. And then any money that is created from the maritime lien, which is then approved, monetised maritime bills of exchange, can be issued.
Right.
And unlike agricultural bills of exchange, which we call commercial, a maritime bill of exchange, because the lien makes the acceptor already accept the lien, once it's monetised, the ecclesiastical nature of a maritime lien means that the bills of exchange cannot be refused. It is actually a dishonour and a criminal act to refuse a maritime bill of exchange under their system.
Well,
and now we know them as US Federal Reserve notes.
yes.
They're more powerful than gold. See, gold, people can haggle, but you can't haggle maritime bills of exchange. You have to accept them on face value.
Right.
So the reason they got rid of the gold standard was maritime bills of exchange are far better and far more useful than gold.
Right.
They're guaranteed by the lien.
Yes.
It's wild, isn't it?
And who's holding the lien?
The trustee of the bankruptcy. So every country was bankrupted in 1933 by the biz. The biz was founded with $1.6 trillion worth of gold.
Yeah.
It's actually listed in plain sight. They tell everyone that it was founded with $1.6 trillion worth of gold. They just say it was Swiss gold francs. Now, the Swiss have never minted $1.6 trillion worth of Swiss gold francs ever, right? What they're saying is that the total stores of gold of the Vatican, which is the largest private stores in the world, underwrote the biz. Yeah?
Yep.
And what they're not telling you is they say that this gold came together from Germany, England, and other places. Well, these countries have never had that volume of gold, and they never disclosed that they own that gold. It's the Vatican, but it was brought into play through a large group of private shareholders.
Yes.
That have a direct tie into the Vatican and remain the shareholders of the biz today.
That part I was aware of.
Were you aware of that?
Yep.
Yeah.
I don't know who the parties are, but the $1.5 trillion and.
Well, the reserve banks are only members, but the private shareholders actually they hide them in plain sight. You know who they are? They're the Knights of Malta.
Okay.
So the Knights of Malta is an order of the Catholic Church. It's the most open order of the Catholic Church because it permits Protestants and Jews. Not that I've seen any Muslims in it, but I'm sure they'd even accept Muslims, right? Okay?
Yes.
And any head of state that comes on board becomes a Knight of Malta. Every FBI director has been a Knight of Malta. Every CIA director has been a Knight of Malta. Every treasurer has always been a Knight of Malta. Every president since Roosevelt has been a Knight of Malta. But it's all valid. You can all validate it. It's nothing in there that is untrue or trying to establish a position that can't be validated. It's all fact. But it was just trying to establish that there was a solid underpinning to it. But the gold was a ruse. The gold just got everyone into a position of bankruptcy control. And then what the biz did was put these reserve banks in place as the trustees. So the liens are held by the trustees. So the Federal Reserve is the trustee of the multiple timed bankrupted corporations of the United States. Now, every time there's a bankruptcy, what they do is they roll the previous bankrupted corporation under a new, fresh company, a new, fresh corporation.
Right.
So think of it as onions, yeah?
Yep.
So every time they do that, it makes it harder to get out of bankruptcy, right? Because if you're under multiple bankruptcies, you have to clear the first and the second and the third, right? It's like digging a deeper hole.
Yes.
So in the case of America now, it's been bankrupted at least 5 times, I think, 4 or 5 times. So that means that we are buried 5 times into that corporation, yeah?
Right. Yes.
And every time what they're doing is it's just another giant curse, massive curse. All still managed by the trustees being the Fed Reserve. Back to the biz. But what we've found is, too, that of all the maritime bills of exchange currencies, only one is given ecclesiastical superiority. And by ecclesiastical superiority, I mean a form of money that is still produced in a religious ceremony. Right?
Yes.
Now, you heard from us that blue is the colour of the ecclesiastical notices of dishonour, right? It's also a colour that denotes the sea of souls, aqua, in fact, the colour.
Yes.
The spiritual force. Now, when they print US dollars, the paper they print it off is blue. It starts off as blue, right? And then when they apply yellow to it, it becomes green. It becomes the yellow is the symbol of the Venetians. The aqua is the symbol of the sea. And when the yellow and the aqua are applied, you're talking about maritime, the colour, and it's really cool. It's called aquamarine. Yeah.
Yes.
And then the red, the symbol of the red is back to the Talmud covenant. The symbol of red, because it's the blood covenant. There's only ever been one blood covenant. We think it's, in Christianity, the sacrifice of Jesus. But the Talmud has always known that is just them putting that up as a false signal. The covenant that they base it on is the covenant of the chosen people. You've heard that before, chosen people?
Yes. Yep.
Well, it's the chosen people of Moloch, right? The chosen people of Satan. Not the chosen people of divine, right?
Well, a lot of Christians out there have a different take on that.
Well, but this is the problem. The rabbi know this. So, they've sold the lies and they laugh. That's why they laugh, because people are sold a lie and believe it. But the red symbolizes the Talmud covenant. So whenever you see the numbers in red, it's back to the primary covenant. Yeah.
By the way, if I could just interject there, Vic, do you know about the United States Public Law 102-14?
Not off the cuff. I read a lot of them, but quite a while ago.
Okay, that one is entitled the Education Act. It was passed in 1991 by the Bush.
Okay.
Anyway, it declares that all U.S. law is based on the Talmud. Is that news to you?
No, it's not actually.
Ah. Anyway, it goes on to say that it's an education that the Talmudic, or the Noahide laws, the 7 Noahide laws, are to be applied to Gentiles in the United States.
Right.
It doesn't explain what the punishment is for violating the Noahide laws, but it makes a statement. You can find it on the internet, 102-14. Anyway, so what it's doing is it's getting back to the Talmudic jurisdiction,
right.
with the original blood oath, and that's where the first covenant is at, and they do have jurisdiction. They do.
Right. Yeah, my dad always said the Talmud's not a good book for us.
No, but the interesting thing, and this is something I was saying to Gerald, and I've said to the guys, Vic, is that when you hear the word covenant, what they don't tell you is that covenant is a binding agreement. So it's a contract. It's a binding contract.
Yep.
And you cannot enter a contract. Under the oldest laws, so go back to Hammurabi, Rome, all these laws, you cannot enter a contract unless it's a contract of equals, right?
Yes.
So what they teach Christians is that they say that there's a sacred contract, right? But they don't teach Christians that you can't enter a contract unless you're equal. So, right. So when a covenant is claimed and it cannot be demonstrated as equal, then it can't be a valid covenant. It's a false covenant, right? It's a false binding agreement. Now, the most famous passage of the Talmud, and you've probably heard this, is when the rabbi argued with God and won. Have you ever heard of that argument?
No, I haven't.
Okay, well, you probably might have heard of it, but maybe not the quote, but there's a famous passage by the founder of the Kingdom of Israel and founder of the covenant, under one of his various pseudonyms, where it says that the rabbi argued with God, in this case it's with Moloch, Satan, and won the argument. So the passage is probably one of the most esoteric of the Talmud. It's regarded as one of the most important of the Talmud, but its reason for existence is the argument is one of jurisdiction, and why they claim that the covenant with Moloch is valid is that under this argument, the rabbi argued that if they demonstrate such evil upon the earth, well, they didn't publish this, but this is the effect of it. If they unleash such evil upon the earth and establish rule upon the earth as judges of the earth, then they are equal to Moloch in the underworld.
Right. Gotcha.
So it's a valid covenant in their eye, so long as they continue to perform evil and sacrifice. Right?
Okay, so that explains a lot right there, doesn't it?
Yes, it does. But there was a maturing agreement in the covenant, which was at the end of the covenant, or at an appointed time in the covenant, that these are the rabbinical Zionist crew, have to sacrifice themselves. And of course they haven't. Instead, what we see is in the 20th century, which was signified as if you like, the maturing of this covenant,
yes,
they substituted others instead of themselves. And the figure that was interpreted by their most senior rabbi in sacrifice of themselves, which they used as a substitute, was the figure 6 million.
6 million?
6 million. They interpreted that from their prophecy that they had to sacrifice 6 million of their own in order to remain in honor with the covenant. Now, people think of the figure 6 million in World War II, of course, right?
Yep.
But in fact, they tried it in World War One first, and it didn't wash. They claimed that 6 million Jewish German soldiers had been killed in World War One, and they made big announcements in New York about it, and people just said it was just all propaganda and crap, so they decided not to push it any further. But the figure was very strongly pushed in after World War II to say that 6 million Jews had been murdered in the Holocaust.
Right.
One thing to put in there, Frank, is this. Vic, do you know what the word Holocaust means?
I have never looked into it, so I'm going to.
It means a burnt sacrificial offering to a god,
of animals.
Yeah. And what did Hitler do, allegedly, right? Burnt them all.
Well, the sacrifices to Baal Moloch were going on 2,000 years ago.
The company Bayer that created the. Yeah.
So, accomplish that. What does it mean? Once they accomplish that.
Well, two things. One, from the time of the Roman cult popes that were Venetian, that were burning people, like the Cathars, they were getting prophecy out of them when they were burning them.
Yes.
And secondly, when they burn them, it's such an excruciating way to die that the soul is then given up to Moloch. So it becomes part of the energy of Moloch.
And that would make Moloch happy now, wouldn't it?
Well, turns out not really.
Turns out not really?
Well, yeah, in the sense that, well, okay, I mean, the challenge for them is that their cosmology is extremely basic, yeah? For example, they recognize that there has been supernatural forces in existence for a long time, but it's never really occurred to them where those spiritual forces come from.
Right.
Yeah?
Yes.
So if you have a superhuman spirit, where did it come from? Was it made out of energy? Was it because of the collective belief? Was it because some alien had existed prior to the Sabbateans? We call them Samaritans.
Yes.
Also, we call them Venetians. We also call them Phoenicians. We also call them Carthaginians. We also call them a number of other things. But to these people, they didn't really care. That's just not their interest. Their interest was, how do we establish an argument of power? They weren't really into, anything deeper than that. Their cosmology has always been shallow power. They're traders. Right. To them, it was all about argument, legalese, position, and control. It was never about completion, synergy. They're into prophecy, but again, it shows how shallow they are. They would rather be told something from a dying man or woman on a stake than spend 20 years studying history to come up with something themselves. Yeah?
Right. Yep.
So it's a real mindset of these people. And that's why they build their big houses and have parties and, take drugs, because really, to them, it's all the short path, Vic. It's not the long path, it's the short path. In all of this, it's Sansu, Sensei, a lot of stuff gets spoken about Chinese war philosophy, but I think one truth is to know thy enemy is extremely important, and it's one of the big missing pieces in moving forward and truth movement is not a full appreciation of walking in the shoes and understanding the mind of the enemy. And I think that's why, sadly, a lot of actions are are done without full effect. Like the Jesuits, for example, people not understanding who the Jesuits are, or the Roman cult, people thinking that they've been in power since the time of Peter, when in reality they only took power across in the 11th century.
Right.
So yeah, there's a lot of things that are coming to fore now that become tools that we can use to physically address, tackle, outposition these people. I just mentioned one then, the Roman cult. When I described the takeover by the Lombardy pagan satanic families that used the Pontifex Maximus title and their history to kind of outposition the Franks and the Saxons, that gave life back to Rome to our position in Constantinople. I call them the Roman cult. I don't call them the Roman Catholic Church, because if you say the Catholic Church is corrupt, maybe in a room you might get 3 people that agree, but you're probably also going to get 5 people that are going to be quite upset because they're Catholic or they know someone who's Catholic, and they don't feel it's fair to basically slander everyone because of a few priests. But if you say Roman cult, you're not talking about a Catholic. You're talking about a very small group of people who know exactly what they're doing. Back to what I was saying before about understanding what happens in the court, and the concept of how to establish standing immediately, clearly. There's been thousands of, well, not just thousands, but millions of words that have been produced on the internet about how to tackle, tax and other issues. But in many cases, it's about fluff, about misdirection. It's getting back to exactly what's going on. So when we were talking before, Vic, about and what Gerald was showing is when you look at the definitions that are in the legal dictionaries, they tell you that when you walk in, one of the legal maxims is one who does not establish their rights has none. In other words, if you don't establish standing in court, you have no standing.
Correct.
They tell us. And yet, people still think that if they put paperwork into a clerk, that is somehow to establish standing. It doesn't. You walk into the court, you must stand and say, Your Honour, I'm a living being. The flesh lives, the blood flows. And I ask humbly for remedy. The judge doesn't want to give you remedy. They'll run out, as we described. They'll re-establish their honour by coming back into court. The court will immediately transform into being a maritime court, from being a court of the Bar Society, and then he'll continue as if nothing happened. You have to re-establish again. Your Honour, wish to restate, I'm a living being, the blood flows, the flesh lives. The judge will freak out then because you've done it. And then you say, Your Honour, I humbly ask for cure and maintenance, not remedy, because it's a maritime court now. Yep. They'll really freak out the judge. Now, if it's a federal judge and he's really wanting to nail you and put you in prison, he'll run out again to re-establish honour. He'll come back in for the third and final time. He can't do it anymore. And he'll say, Your Honour, that wish to establish that I'm a living being, the blood flows, the flesh lives, and we are sovereign. And nothing stands between myself and the divine. And because the judge for the third time has now established his position as a priest under Canon Law, that's it. Game over.
Right.
But in that simple process, because they've fed so much garbage out to people, there is literally thousands and thousands and thousands of people that have gone to prison because they thought they were doing the remedy. And they wondered why in the hell it still railroaded through.
Yeah, well, if this is the basis of what they're doing, then it sure makes sense exactly what's going on and why people won't get the remedy. And I look at it like gambling. They'll let the odd person win, so they keep coming back for more. And other people get the sense that they can win. But this percentages are very small, but it keeps the business in the courts going anyhow, like it does in the gambling casinos.
That's right. It is a casino, and they're making money off it, as you know. They're making money every time someone goes to jail. Sell the bond, make their money.